Sarah stared at the ominous letter, hands trembling. Her once vibrant garden, her pride and joy, had been deemed too wild by the Homeowners Association. But this was no simple landscaping dispute. Refusing to let them bulldoze her life's work, Sarah had a radical plan to protect her oasis, one that would pit her against the entire neighborhood. The stakes had never been higher. This was war. Sarah crumpled the HOA letter in her fist, feeling a familiar burn of defiance rise within her. For years, she had poured her heart and soul into cultivating this lush, thriving garden, a verdant oasis that brought her peace and solace. But now, the petty tyrants of the Homeowners Association had deemed it unsightly and out of compliance. "Over my dead body," she muttered, storming out to survey the vibrant riot of flowers, towering trees, and buzzing wildlife. This was her sanctuary, her connection to the natural world that the manicured lawns and pruned shrubs of the neighborhood had long since severed. Marching back inside, Sarah began furiously researching. There had to be a way to protect her garden, to elevate it beyond the HOA's narrow-minded restrictions. Scanning through pages of local legislation, she stumbled upon an obscure statute, a provision that allowed landowners to register their properties as state-recognized nature preserves. "That's it," she exclaimed, heart pounding. With this designation, the HOA would be powerless to interfere. Sarah's garden would be safeguarded, a haven for the diverse flora and fauna she had nurtured over the years. Wasting no time, she placed a call to the state environmental agency, laying out her case with unwavering determination. The representative, initially skeptical, was soon captivated by Sarah's passion and the ecological significance of her lush oasis. "This is highly unusual, but your garden does seem to meet the criteria," the agent mused. "We'll need to send an inspector to verify the claim, but I must say, your application is compelling." Sarah felt a surge of hope, her grip tightening on the phone. "When can they come?" she asked, already envisioning the HOA's outraged faces when they realized their control had been stripped away. The agent paused, a hint of amusement in his voice. "We can have someone out there tomorrow morning. Congratulations, Ms. Greenfield. It looks like you're about to become the proud owner of a state-registered nature preserve." Ending the call, Sarah allowed herself a triumphant smile. The battle had only just begun, but she was ready to fight for her beloved garden with every fiber of her being. This was no longer just a personal crusade. It was a stand against the tyranny of conformity, a defiant declaration that nature and individual expression would not be stifled by the narrow-minded dictates of the HOA. Tomorrow, the inspector would arrive, and the war for her garden would truly commence. Sarah steeled herself for the fight ahead, her resolute gaze sweeping over the lush foliage that had become her sanctuary. Nothing would stop her from protecting this oasis, no matter the cost. The next morning, Sarah awoke with a nervous energy thrumming through her veins. Today, the state inspector would arrive to assess her garden's eligibility for the nature preserve designation. If all went according to plan, the HOA's power over her cherished oasis would be stripped away. As the doorbell rang, Sarah smoothed her hands over her clothes and took a deep breath before opening the door. A polite-looking middle-aged man stood on her doorstep, clipboard in hand. "Good morning, Ms. Greenfield. I'm Robert, the state environmental inspector. I understand you've applied to have your property registered as a nature preserve." "Yes, that's right," Sarah replied, ushering him inside. "Please, come take a look. I've been tending to this garden for over a decade, and it's become a true sanctuary for all sorts of wildlife." Robert nodded, his keen eyes already scanning the lush foliage visible through the windows. "Impressive. I can certainly see the ecological value here. Let's take a closer look, shall we?" As they stepped outside, Sarah couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. The vibrant flowers, the towering trees, the buzzing insects. Every element of this garden was a testament to her tireless work and deep connection to the natural world. "Fascinating," Robert murmured, jotting down notes as he examined the diverse flora and fauna. "You've managed to create a truly remarkable habitat here. I can see why you'd want to protect it." Sarah felt a glimmer of hope, but she knew the HOA wouldn't give up their control without a fight. "The Homeowners Association has been pressuring me to tame the garden," she explained. "They claim it's unsightly and out of compliance." Robert's brow furrowed. "I see. Well, I can assure you that your garden more than meets the criteria for a state-recognized nature preserve. The diversity of species, the lush vegetation, the lack of invasive plants, it's all here." A smile tugged at the corners of Sarah's lips. "So you'll approve the application?" "Absolutely," Robert said, nodding firmly. "I'll submit my recommendation to the State Environmental Agency right away." "Congratulations, Ms. Greenfield. Your garden is about to become a protected sanctuary." Sarah felt a surge of elation, but she knew the battle was far from over. The HOA would undoubtedly fight this decision tooth and nail, unwilling to relinquish their stranglehold on the neighborhood's aesthetics. But with the state's backing, Sarah felt a renewed sense of confidence. She was no longer alone in her fight to preserve this oasis. The law was on her side. As Robert departed, Sarah gazed out at her garden, a steely determination settling in her eyes. The HOA had no idea what they were up against. This was her sanctuary, her legacy, and she would defend it to the bitter end. The news of Sarah's successful nature preserve application spread like wildfire through the tidy, manicured neighborhood. Within days, the HOA board members were banging on her door, faces twisted in fury. "What is the meaning of this, Ms. Greenfield?" the HOA president, Marjorie, demanded, her perfectly coiffed hair quivering with indignation. "You can't just override our community guidelines like this." Sarah stood her ground, chin raised defiantly. "I'm afraid I can, Marjorie. My garden has been officially recognized as a state-protected nature preserve. You and the HOA have no jurisdiction over it anymore." Marjorie's eyes narrowed to slits. "This is unacceptable. Do you have any idea how much this is going to reduce our property values? The entire neighborhood is up in arms." Sarah resisted the urge to roll her eyes. "That's not my concern. The state has determined that my garden is an important ecological asset, and they've taken steps to ensure its preservation. Your outdated, restrictive covenants no longer apply here." "We'll see about that." Marjorie spat, her manicured nails digging into the palms of her hands. "This isn't over, Ms. Greenfield. We won't let you destroy the character of our neighborhood with your jungle." With that, Marjorie spun on her heel and stormed off, the other HOA members trailing behind her like a flock of indignant geese. Sarah watched them go, a small smile playing on her lips. "Bring it on," she murmured, closing the door and returning to her beloved garden. The state had recognized its value. Now she just had to defend it against the relentless onslaught of the HOA. Over the next few days, the neighborhood was abuzz with heated discussions and whispered rumors. Neighbors who had once politely ignored Sarah's garden now eyed it with disdain, muttering about plummeting property values and the eyesore that had been allowed to flourish. Sarah, however, refused to be cowed. She spent her days tending to her plants, trimming back the more unruly elements, and ensuring the overall health and beauty of her oasis. The state inspector had deemed it worthy of preservation, and she would do whatever it took to uphold that designation. One afternoon, as she was watering her prize-winning roses, a shadow fell over her. Turning, she found herself face to face with her next-door neighbor, Evelyn, a prim, judgmental woman who had long been a thorn in Sarah's side. "This has gone on long enough, Sarah," Evelyn said, her voice dripping with disdain. That jungle of yours is dragging down the entire neighborhood. When are you going to do the right thing and cut it all down?" Sarah bristled, her grip tightening on the hose. "The right thing. Evelyn, this garden is a registered state preserve. It's protected by law, and I have no intention of destroying it to appease your aesthetic sensibilities. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. We'll see about that. The HOA has already begun legal proceedings to challenge your preserve designation. This isn't over, not by a long shot. With that, she turned and stalked away, leaving Sarah standing amidst her lush, vibrant garden, a growing sense of unease settling in the pit of her stomach. The HOA was mobilizing, and they clearly had no intention of backing down. Sarah knew that the fight for her sanctuary was only just beginning. She steeled herself for the battle ahead, determined to protect the oasis she had nurtured for so long. This was more than just a garden. It was a symbol of her defiance, a testament to the power of nature to thrive in the face of conformity. And she would defend it to the bitter end. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of legal battles and neighborhood tensions. Sarah had expected the HOA to challenge her nature preserve designation, but the ferocity of their assault still caught her off guard. Marjorie, the HOA president, had wasted no time in assembling a team of lawyers, each one determined to tear down Sarah's carefully constructed case. They filed injunction after injunction, arguing that the preserve status was a violation of the community's covenants and a threat to property values. Sarah, however, was not one to back down easily. She fought back with equal tenacity, rallying support from local environmental groups and nature enthusiasts who saw her garden as a vital oasis in the sea of manicured conformity. This isn't just about my garden. It's about the right of individuals to coexist with nature, she argued passionately at a community meeting, her eyes burning with conviction. The HOA wants to strip away our personal freedoms and impose their narrow vision of what a proper neighborhood should look like. Her words were met with a smattering of applause, but Marjorie and her allies remained steadfast, their lips pressed into thin, disapproving lines. This is a blatant disregard for our community guidelines, the HOA president retorted, her voice dripping with disdain. Ms. Greenfield is exploiting a legal loophole to force her will upon the rest of us. We won't stand for it. The debate raged on, with both sides digging in their heels and refusing to budge. Sarah could feel the strain of the conflict weighing on her, the endless court appearances and acrimonious neighborhood meetings taking a toll. But she refused to give up, her determination fueled by a deep-seated belief in the inherent value of her garden. They can't win, she told herself, pacing the lush pathways of her oasis, the song of birds and the hum of insects a soothing backdrop to her thoughts. This is my sanctuary, my legacy. I won't let them destroy it. As the legal battle dragged on, Sarah found solace in her garden, losing herself in the rhythmic tasks of weeding, pruning, and tending to her beloved plants. It was here, amidst the verdant foliage and the dancing butterflies, that she felt most alive, most connected to the natural world that the HOA sought to suppress. And so, with a renewed sense of purpose, she redoubled her efforts, pouring her heart and soul into preserving this haven. She knew that the fight was far from over, but she was prepared to stand her ground, no matter the cost. The HOA might have the weight of the law and the community's expectations on their side, but Sarah had something far more powerful. A deep, unshakable conviction that her garden was worth fighting for. As the legal battle dragged on, the tension in the neighborhood reached a fever pitch. Neighbors who had once smiled and waved at each other now averted their gazes, unwilling to be caught in the crossfire of the garden war, as it had become known. Sarah found herself the target of disapproving glares and whispered insults whenever she ventured outside her sanctuary. Marjorie and the HOA had waged an aggressive propaganda campaign, painting her as a selfish eco-warrior intent on destroying the community's carefully curated aesthetic. She's ruining everything. One neighbor hissed to another, her manicured nails tapping against the steering wheel of her pristine SUV. That garden is an eyesore, and it's bringing down our property values. Something has to be done. Sarah tried her best to tune out the negativity, focusing instead on the tranquility of her garden. Here, amidst the vibrant blooms and the fluttering butterflies, she found solace and renewed determination. This was her legacy, her connection to the natural world, and she would defend it with every fiber of her being. But the constant attacks, both verbal and legal, were taking a toll. Sarah found herself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling and wondering if she had the strength to see this fight through to the end. One morning, as she was tending to her prized roses, a knock at the door interrupted her reverie. Wiping the dirt from her hands, she opened the door to find a solemn-faced man in a suit standing on her doorstep. "Ms. Greenfield," he asked, his voice formal and clipped, "I'm here to serve you with a court order." Sarah's heart sank as she accepted the thick envelope, her fingers trembling. She knew what this meant. The HOA had managed to secure an injunction, likely ordering her to restore her garden to their liking. With a heavy heart, she unfolded the documents, her eyes quickly scanning the legalese. But as she read on, her brow furrowed in confusion. This can't be right," she murmured, her gaze darting up to the man. "I'd assure you it is," he replied, a hint of sympathy in his voice. "The court has ruled in your favor, Ms. Greenfield. Your garden has been officially designated as a state-protected nature preserve." Sarah felt a surge of elation, the weight of the world lifting from her shoulders. They lost. She breathed, a disbelieving smile spreading across her face. The man nodded. The HOA's challenge was dismissed. Your garden is now under the legal protection of the State Environmental Agency. Sarah couldn't believe it. After months of grueling legal battles, she had emerged victorious. The HOA's efforts to strip her of her sanctuary had failed, and her oasis was now safeguarded for generations to come. As the man turned to leave, Sarah felt a newfound sense of purpose. She would not let this precious victory be tarnished by the HOA's lingering resentment. This garden was hers, a testament to her dedication and a symbol of her refusal to bow to the tyranny of conformity. With a resolute determination, Sarah stepped back into her beloved oasis, ready to nurture it with even greater fervor. The fight might not be over, but she had won the first decisive battle, and that was a victory worth savoring. The news of the HOA's defeat reverberated through the neighborhood, sparking a mix of reactions. Some residents, like Sarah's next-door neighbor Evelyn, were openly resentful, glaring at the flourishing garden with thinly veiled disgust. "It's not fair," Evelyn fumed, her well-manicured hands clenched into fists. That jungle is ruining the entire community's aesthetic. How could the court allow this to happen?" Sarah, however, simply regarded her neighbor with a calm, unwavering gaze. "The law is on my side, Evelyn. My garden has been designated a state-protected nature preserve. There's nothing you or the HOA can do about it." Evelyn's face twisted with fury, but she knew better than to argue further. The legal battle had been decided, and the HOA's repeated attempts to override the preserve status had all been soundly rejected. As the news spread, however, a surprising shift began to take place in the neighborhood. Some residents, intrigued by the vibrant oasis that had withstood the HOA's onslaught, started to venture closer, their curiosity piqued. "It's actually quite beautiful," one woman remarked to her husband as they strolled past the garden, their eyes drinking in the riot of colors and the buzzing symphony of insects. "I never realized how lifeless our own yard looks in comparison." The husband nodded in agreement, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Maybe we should consider letting our lawn go a little wild, too. It might be good for the environment." Sarah watched these tentative interactions with a growing sense of hope. Perhaps, in time, her neighbors would come to appreciate the inherent value of her garden, rather than seeing it as an affront to their carefully curated aesthetic. As the weeks passed, she continued to lovingly tend to her oasis, pruning, weeding, and nurturing the diverse array of plants and wildlife. The state inspectors made regular visits, marveling at the thriving ecosystem she had created, and Sarah couldn't help but swell with pride at their praise. "You've done an incredible job here, Ms. Greenfield," one inspector remarked, his eyes sparkling with admiration. This garden is a true testament to your dedication and your respect for the natural world." Sarah smiled, her gaze sweeping over the lush foliage and the fluttering butterflies. "It's my sanctuary, my connection to the earth. I'll do whatever it takes to protect it." The inspector nodded, a knowing look in his eyes. "I have no doubt you will. Keep up the good work. This preserve is in excellent hands." As he departed, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. The HOA might still harbor resentment, but she was no longer alone in her fight. The state was on her side, and with their backing, her garden would continue to thrive and inspire. With a determined smile, Sarah set to work, her hands gently caressing the vibrant peels of her blooms. This was her legacy, her defiant stand against the tyranny of conformity, and she would defend it until her last breath. As the months passed, Sarah's triumphant battle over her garden began to shift the neighborhood's mindset. While the HOA remained steadfast in their disapproval, a growing number of residents started to appreciate the vibrant oasis that had once been the source of so much contention. Sarah noticed subtle changes. Neighbors who had once averted their gaze now stopped to admire the riot of colors and the buzzing symphony of insects. Some even ventured closer, asking questions about the diverse array of plants and the importance of preserving natural habitats. "I had no idea how vital this garden was to the local ecosystem," one younger couple admitted, their eyes wide with wonder as they watched a hummingbird dart among the flowers. "It's so much more than just a pretty landscape." Sarah beamed with pride, her heart swelling at the realization that her beloved sanctuary was starting to change hearts and minds. The state's recognition of her garden as a protected nature preserve had not only safeguarded its future, but had also begun to challenge the narrow-minded views that had once dominated the neighborhood. "It's all about balance," she would explain to those who approached her, her hands gently caressing the delicate petals of a blooming rose. "This garden isn't just about aesthetics. It's a living, breathing ecosystem that supports an incredible diversity of life." Her words seemed to resonate, and slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. Neighbors who had once scoffed at her wild garden now found themselves captivated by its beauty and the abundance of wildlife it attracted. Even Evelyn, Sarah's staunchly disapproving neighbor, seemed to soften over time. One day, as Sarah was tending to her flowering clematis, she noticed Evelyn hesitantly approaching the fence that separated their properties. I must admit, your garden is quite lovely," Evelyn said, her eyes downcast, as if the words were difficult for her to utter. "The hummingbirds are a delight to watch." Sarah couldn't help but feel a surge of triumph. "Thank you, Evelyn. I'm glad you're able to appreciate the beauty and the ecological value of what I've created here." Evelyn nodded, a hint of a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Perhaps we could collaborate on a project to incorporate more native plants in our yards. For the sake of the environment, of course." Sarah's eyebrows rose in surprise, but she quickly recovered, offering Evelyn a warm smile. "I would be more than happy to help. Maybe we can start with a small native garden along the fence line." As Evelyn nodded and retreated back to her own manicured yard, Sarah felt a renewed sense of hope. The battle over her garden might have been won, but the war for the neighborhood's hearts and minds was still ongoing. And with each newfound ally, she knew that her vision of a more harmonious, nature-friendly community was one step closer to becoming a reality. As the seasons changed and the years passed, Sarah's once embattled garden continued to thrive and evolve, becoming a beloved centerpiece of the neighborhood. While the HOA still harbored a lingering resentment, their efforts to challenge the preserve status had long since been exhausted, and they had grudgingly accepted defeat. Sarah, meanwhile, had become a respected figure in the community, her expertise and passion for the natural world inspiring a newfound appreciation for the delicate balance of urban ecosystems. Neighbors who had once scoffed at her wild garden now sought her advice, eager to incorporate more native plants and wildlife-friendly elements into their own yards. One sunny afternoon, as Sarah was watering her flourishing array of blooms, she heard the familiar sound of approaching footsteps. Turning, she found herself face to face with Evelyn, the once staunch opponent of her garden, now bearing a small potted plant in her hands. I've been doing some research," Evelyn began, a hint of uncharacteristic sheepishness in her voice. "And I realized that my lawn has become quite sterile. I was hoping you might be able to help me plant some native species to encourage more biodiversity." Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph, tempered by genuine warmth. "Of course, Evelyn. I'd be more than happy to lend a hand." She gestured toward the vibrant garden. "As you can see, a little bit of wild can go a long way in creating a thriving, diverse ecosystem." Evelyn nodded, her gaze lingering on the fluttering butterflies and the buzzing bees. I never realized how important that was until I saw what you've accomplished here. This garden has become a true treasure for our community." Sarah smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "It's been a labor of love, that's for sure. But it's all been worth it to see the transformation, both in the garden and in the hearts and minds of our neighbors." The two women spent the afternoon working side by side, Evelyn listening intently as Sarah shared her knowledge and passion for native plants and their role in supporting a healthy ecosystem. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, they stepped back to admire their handiwork, a sense of satisfaction radiating from both of them. "Thank you, Sarah," Evelyn said, her voice soft but sincere, "for everything you've done, not just for your garden, but for our entire community." Sarah reached out and gently squeezed Evelyn's arm, a warm smile gracing her features. "It's my pleasure, Evelyn. We're all in this together after all. And this garden, it's a testament to what can happen when we embrace the wild and celebrate the beauty of the natural world." As the two women parted ways, Sarah knew that her long, hard-fought battle had been worth it. Her garden was not just a personal sanctuary. It had become a symbol of hope, a living testament to the power of individual action and the transformative potential of embracing the wonders of the natural world. With a contented sigh, Sarah returned to her beloved oasis, her fingers tracing the delicate petals of a vibrant bloom. The fight might be over, but the journey had only just begun, and she couldn't wait to see what the future held for this remarkable, state-protected nature preserve.